Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Story. My name is Daniel Parker, and I am the writer and creator on a little comic book called Angels Awakening, which is very close to going into fulfillment.
Woohoo!
Yes, so good news on that front. The posters arrived to the fulfillment center. Still waiting on the books. Should be getting into there hopefully by the end of the week, and then once that happens, then the wheels will start turning and the books are going to start going out. So happy times. And of course, joining me, my partner in crime over here.
Hey everyone, it's Darth Bobcat, aka D. Benjamin Fastbinder, author, mildly air, if not extraordinaire. The author of Confessions of the MAGPIE Wizard series, as well as the short story Second Contact, Checkpoint Alpha story.
Yes, so you can. Unfortunately, I didn't put Second Contact in the description, but
that's cool.
Yeah, but Magpie Wizard is in the description down below, and time for Bobcat's favorite part of the show.
Buy my book! Buy my book! Buy my book!
You know what? It doesn't have the power to hurt me anymore.
You've become numb to the pain.
Yes, I mean, shoot, Alan Sherman only got the 2 seasons. That's enough punishment.
Jay
Sherman. See, I couldn't even remember his name.
Alan Sherman. God, who's Alan Sherman? It was somebody else. I want to say an actor or something. But anyway.
Oh, he's the guy who did. He's the one who did "Hello, Mudda, Hello, Fada." Right, here I am at Camp Granada.
Yes. Okay. I knew. I thought I heard the name. I thought the name sounded familiar. All right. So for this show, we're going to be talking about logic and realism, and how sometimes having too much of those things in a story can actually be more detrimental than beneficial.
Yep, exactly. And this is one that's been on my mind for literally years, as because it's a fine balancing act. I'll say that one of the worst and best things that the internet ever came up with was TV tropes. Daniel, did you ever end up going on TV tropes binges back in the day when it seemed relevant?
I didn't. No.
So you're better off than I am. So for those who aren't aware, TV Tropes is basically a website where the objective is to document writing tricks and other aspects of fiction writing, and just kind of codify them. So, and there's some terminology from there that started there and leaked into the larger internet that you may have heard of. Like if you've ever heard a kind of snobby character called the Libby, or if you've ever heard of, it's actually been a few years since I've been there, but there's a few terms that I notice people using occasionally from there. So like let's see. I'm just going to look up a random TV tropes page. I hadn't originally considered making this a bashing of TV tropes, but it does fit. All right, so I'm just going to pick here.
We're doing it live, folks.
We're doing it live, folks. So here's an example for you. They'll take one of the tropes here is mid-air repair, which is basically a story where an airplane or a spaceship is on fire or crashing, and they manage to perform a repair on it in the middle of the flight and arrest their fall. Now, the issue. Here's the thing: is that one is kind of harmless, because it's just like you read through it and You've got okay, well, in the series Air Gear, so and so fixed their plane while it was in the middle of crashing. In Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, R2D2 repairs their spaceship after the shield generator gets knocked out, or was it the hyperdrive? Either way, he fixed it and so on. But the trouble with them categorizing things like that in that exact way is that it doesn't really answer the question: was it a well executed scene or not? Because it's more, it's just like, oh, you have a scene with a character who is using a shotgun. You've listed every time that a character uses a shotgun in media. That isn't interesting. But the trouble is that you go like, oh, I don't want to be too tropey. I have to think outside of these tropes. When it's not like it's even an official list anyway. It's just a bunch of people online adding things as they see them. So that's stunted my writing for years, because I was always thinking, oh, okay, I gotta be thoughtful about this, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, go ahead.
But yeah, I kind of had the same. I kind of had the same issue as well. I wanted to do my best to avoid any sort of trope or cliche that had been done. That's been done hundreds of times throughout different forms of fiction, be they in comic books, be they in books or TV shows, movies, video games, etc. And and what ended up happening was I was writing very bland stories. I was writing just very very two-dimensional characters, and it was kind of like we've joked about this before, but the old Family Guy, the movie with with Jeff Daniels and Bill Pullman, and like
I can't wait to have that spaghetti. Oh, I made linguine tonight. I hope that's okay. Yeah, that's about the same. We're such good friends.
Yeah, there's no conflict in this.
Yeah, right. That's and that's like a related thing to over logicking, because like if every character behaved logically, then usually a plot may not ever occur.
Yeah.
But I wish I could have found it if I had been. Yeah, it didn't even occur to me that I was going after TV tropes until we got started here. Let's see. I'm just gonna pick a random series here. Da-da-da.
Yeah, that's that's very true. Yeah, even having a main character is a trope.
Right. All right. So, okay. So here's actually kind of a better example of one. If I can show my screen for a sec.
Sure.
And the thing about TV tropes is that it makes all the okay, here we go. It makes all tropes on equal footing.
Yes.
So like you can actually feel bad if you spend enough time there about having a scene in an abandoned warehouse, because you go down here, it's like, oh man, there's so many comic books and animated manga, and oh, I bet if I go down here to video games, yeah, man, I am such a hack for even thinking about having a character have a scene in an abandoned warehouse.
Yeah. But it's a great setting for any kind of you could have a great action scene in there, or you could have a just a shady meeting between two characters or what have you in an abandoned warehouse. I mean, that's it's there's some things that are just incredibly hard to avoid.
Yep. And the other thing that now I eventually got over that, because I kind of realized, well, when I see a story I actually enjoyed on here, is it bad because it has these tropes? Well, no. It's totally okay to have like another good example. They would talk about the 5-man band, how you'd usually have a main character, the chick, the sidekick, the lancer, who's like the alternative main character, maybe like a science guy. It's like, oh man, I'm going to be different and have a team of 6 characters or 4 characters. It's like, no, the reason that these things work is because they work. It's a balanced structure for a group of characters to have if they're off fighting evil.
Yes. Yes, it's that's you've got they all balance each other out, and it makes for not just all cool action scenes but also character interactions. It's that's how it works.
That's the nature of fiction. Now, the yeah, okay, yeah, like the trope of having it rain when the main character is sad. Yeah, it's done a lot, but it's a trope that works for a reason. Use it if you wish, right?
Yeah.
Because so it's actually like an older thing where it was seen like it's like nature reflecting what the character is feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, that's why funerals usually have rain, and funeral scenes it's raining. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's a good example. If I'm sitting there being Mr. Logic, I'm going to go, well, okay, does it really make sense that every time I have a funeral in my story that oh, hey, Edward.
Hey, Edward.
And well, the answer is if you go by TV tropes, everything is a trope. Yeah, because it's almost like, well, if we categorize it here, it's a trope because we're TV tropes, the place where you categorize tropes. And it's like, it's not like if you have like if you go, oh well, all these other movies had rain at a funeral, so I can't have rain at a funeral. Darn.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh wait, but that would actually really work, and I could. Oh, but everyone else did it. Darn. Now there's and that's here. Sorry, I got my train of thought derailed. But
rain at funerals.
Right. If you leave yourself out of, if you cut yourself off from doing things that have been done as tropes before, you're going to be, like you said, like you're going to have no conflict with the story.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when, and I'll, again, I'm going to use myself as, something I'm working on as an example, but I'm working on a comic book where I've got two girls who are superheroes, and one of them is very very outgoing. She's kind of flirty. But she's also very impulsive. She's kind of an adrenaline junkie, and she just kind of likes to just go just do whatever she wants, and doesn't think before she does something. Whereas her friend is the opposite. She's very quiet. She's shy. She's reserved. She likes to plan things out. She's not really she's not a thrill seeker or anything like that. She's just very she's just she just likes she just likes quiet nights in, reading a book or watching Netflix. And the whole trope is like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you got two friends that are completely the opposite of each other, and it's like
Odd Couple did it.
Yes, The Odd Couple did it. Or you've got or think of any other show where you've got like two, okay, so like another a TV show kind of like that was I don't know, did you ever watch Rizzoli and Isles?
Can't say I did.
So Rizzoli and Isles was with Angie Harmon, and I can't remember the actress who played Isles, but they were it's about Rizzoli's a detective. Isles is a medical examiner. They're both really good friends, but Rizzoli's she's very blue collar. She's very she's kind of has very masculine qualities to her, even though she looks like Angie Harmon. But and then Isles is quite the opposite. She's very intellectual. She's very intelligent. She's comes from a very wealthy family, and they're just the complete opposite, yet they're both really best friends. And so, but that's the thing. Like, when in my case, like, you can't really be, uh, afraid to do that, just because it's been done before. Because in my view, I think having two superheroes, two girls who are superheroes working together with such diametrically opposing personalities is going to make for some very interesting storytelling.
Right. Where if you let yourself get too bogged down in, oh, it's been done before. I mean, if you know it's been done before, you just find ways to be unique about it.
Right.
Now, to kind of pivot from trope talk to more logic talk and realism talk, well, let's kind of focus on realism first. Now, as I recall what you told me about your setting there, the reserved kind of bookish one is developed a means of giving people superpowers and recruited the kind of fun, flirty one into it. Am I remembering that right?
I'm actually reworking it a bit. So I had to, because and we'll probably get into that when we talked about logic, but she what ends up happening is it's actually the shy bookworm girl's father. I changed it to her father is the one who created it, and then the two of them get exposed to it, and then that's when they become superheroes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go with. So that's actually like a good example of where you could totally be Buzzjoy nitpick, and we'll go with the original premise there.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's kind of two angles where the scissors of realism and logic could slice it to ribbons in theory.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, let's say that so the first question is, okay, is it realistic that somebody could make a serum to give, or something to give people superpowers? Well, no, not strictly realistically.
Mm-hmm.
Do superpowers exist? Well, no. Are you going to be using technology for it? I'm just going to kind of hand wave it. Well, that's just completely unrealistic.
Yeah.
And that's just like, okay, so it has to be totally realistic then, huh? For you to enjoy the story? Yep. Okay. What superhero comics do you enjoy? Oh, well, Batman. Well, what about all of the impossible things that Batman does? Shut up. Because like people are always very defensive of things that they enjoy, even if they use like a lack of realism to attack other things.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, the junk that you like is totally unrealistic, but the things that I love do it in just the right way. My favorite example in media is actually from The Big Bang Theory, because Sheldon Cooper is an awful, awful character who I hate with a deep and abiding passion.
Who doesn't?
My parents loved him.
Oh, God.
It's because he kind of reminded them of one of my friends in high school and college who was on the spectrum.
Okay.
So like knowing him, like kind of similar. But so my big example of Sheldon's like the perfect encapsulation of Sheldon's thought process was he refused to go to Renaissance fairs. Do you know why he refused to go to Renaissance fairs?
Why?
Well, because they never make an attempt to stick to one region or era. You'll have like a 15th century sword being wielded by a guy who's clearly in 13th century dress. And they didn't have, the turkey is endemic to North America, so there wouldn't be turkey legs in a medieval festival. The only way they could get him to settle the heck down and actually go with them to the Renaissance fair is, how about this? You can cosplay as Mr. Spock with your tricorder, and you can pretend that you're on an alien planet that just happens to resemble a technologically unadvanced version of Earth at an indeterminate period in the past. And that's how they got him to go.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. So, if I'm going Mr. Realism here, does Mr. Spock exist? No. Are Vulcans real?
No.
Do we have tricorders?
No.
Uh, have has, as far as we are aware, is interstellar travel possible?
Not yet. No.
Right. So, if you actually, or if he was consistent, he would have tossed Star Trek out with the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just like the perfect and like is the now the other thing is he making it more fun for people to be at that Renaissance fair? No, because there's the one weird guy who's not playing with the program.
Yeah, he's the guy walking around with a bunch of medieval, Renaissance people dressed like Spock
with his big pointy ears.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the logic thing, this is one where I would call it. I would say that logic is actually more important to your story than realism, because you can have a totally unrealistic story, but as long as it plays loose with, or as long as it plays consistently with its own internal logic, you're a-okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like this was actually a thought that I had with your original version of things, where it was the girl who was doing stuff. Because there's the obvious question. Okay, if she has like I'm going to call it a super juice, just because it amuses me.
Yeah.
If she has a super juice that can give people superpowers, what's to stop her from giving everybody superpowers?
Well, it would be she only made like 2 vials of it.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
In theory, she could. In theory, she could. If she knows the formula, she can make more.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, it's like you're doing the kind of the smart thing that Captain America did back in the 40s, where it's like, oh, we totally have the super soldier serum. Oh no, the only scientist who knows how to make it died, and all of his notes were burned or stolen. Darn, I guess there can only be one Captain America. I guess he's still special.
Yes. Yeah, I would say that's probably more the route I'm going.
Yeah. So it's like logic preserved. It's like, oh, darn it, we would love to make more people who are worthy of it super heroines, but Daddy only made 2 vials, and we used them.
Yeah, we used them, and then yeah. Yep. I'm trying not to get too into spoiler territory with the story, but yeah, like the other thing too that I had was with logic, sometimes in stories they do require a bit of leaps in logic, and like for example, like the way I had the story originally was the quiet girl, and I'm going to use their names because I've already told people their names, but so Lucy's the outgoing one, Natalie's the shy one. So the way I had it before was Natalie just kind of, they hadn't seen each other years. Natalie just kind of runs into her, just by happenstance one night, and Lucy's having a very bad day, and Natalie decides to comfort her old friend, and then something happens at work, and Natalie doesn't want to leave Lucy by herself, so she takes Lucy with her to work, and then hijinks ensue, and Lucy and Natalie get superpowers.
Right, and if you want to be douchey nitpick, as they used to call it on That Guy with the Glasses, it's like, well, what are the odds that those characters will just happen to run into each other? It's like, well, it's called a story.
Yeah. But the other part of it too is like the serum they're working on is highly classified. So it's like, well, why are you showing this girl who is not, why are you showing a girl who is not, not meant to see classified material, this highly classified substance?
Nah, she's cool. We know each other from way back. It's
yeah.
my current book I'm working on with starring Rose Cooper for my Magpie Wizard series has a similar big coincidence where she just happens to meet a guy who she grew up with, who was a friend of her older brother's. So it's like, what are the odds of that? And the answer is fairly low. But on the other hand, it's people who know each other run into each other in random places all the time.
Yeah, it's happened to me a few times. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily that much of a leap in logic, but so I mean but if you needed to do the story, then put it in. Like there's nothing
right
wrong with it. Yeah.
Now, if it's towards the end of the story, and oh no, Rose is in a real bind. Oh, I know. I'll have a random friend from back home show up to save her, who has not been introduced up to this point. Then it's a problem.
Yeah. So Martsai, internal logic within a story is all that really matters. Fiction is an elevated expression of life where things can have meaning and purpose, because in real life that's always the case. That's very true. And
Yep.
a story that's realistic would have a superhero that wants to save the city train, hard to stop the bad guy, then die in a car crash on the way to kick his ass. Realistic, sure, not a good story. Yeah, very true.
Right. Stories kind of have to have a point.
Yeah.
Now, actually, there is one spell in Magpie Wizard that is just complete bunk, or at least it's not complete bunk, but it's very unrealistic, or at least it's very amazing that this exists given the magic system, which is basically there is translation magic that exists. And so it's actually like a funny little thing where when you're under the effects of the translation magic, you can tell, because it's like the world suddenly becomes like a badly dubbed Hong Kong Chinese or a Hong Kong Kung Fu movie. Because if somebody is speaking not your language, you're hearing the words perfectly in whatever language you're most comfortable with or thinking in, but it affects just words being spoken. And it also is implied to affect things you read, but it doesn't have any other knock-on effects with other sounds in your environment or other things you're looking at. Now, it's somewhat explicable in the series because you can affect perception, and I do have it that it's like a very large magical artifact to handle all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, really? They figured that out for every language, but it's something that has to exist, or else I have to explain why Soren, the devil from Europe, knows Japanese.
Yeah,
which I had no way of doing. It was enough of a stretch that he was fluent in English, and that was just like his mother making sure he knew, and him having books to read when he was younger. But it's I had no way of making him a good weeb.
Yeah.
And it's like I had no way, and I was also like, okay, so I have all this big international school. Do I constantly want to have to deal with, and such knows English because such, and and so knows Japanese because her uncle was went there and he tutored her every Saturday because why not?
Yes.
Plus, let me have some fun things like when the translation magic shuts down, characters suddenly have a Tower of Babel moment.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it lets me have some cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
But it's like if you were being very nitpicky about my magic system, it would be very hard to believe they could invent that. Not impossible, just. But I kind of need it for the plot to function.
Yeah. You have to keep things going, otherwise you get bogged down in all these details, and then you're reading a Tom Clancy novel.
Yeah, that's actually a good example of getting too bogged down in the details. Like I know that he loved the military and loved doing research, but you don't have to You don't have to prove it, man. We believe you. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah. We get yeah. We know you like the stealth bomber. We don't need to know how it works.
Yeah, it reminds me like on Something Awful ages ago. I saw this thread where people were doing like joke or they're taking book covers and giving them literal titles. And for some Tom Clancy book, it was "The Sight of Men in Uniforms Makes Me Aroused."
Oh, jeez. Oh man.
Which is not inaccurate.
No. Yeah.
But so it's like and part of there is a specific person who I attribute this topic to because it's something I've thought about for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, the YouTuber Mahler.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go out there and just say I'm actually a fan of Mahler's analysis.
Mm-hmm.
He does go on and on and on, but it's like for example, he recently did a review of the movie Black Widow, which I want to say was like 2 hours and 40 minutes of review, and you think to yourself, the heck, that's longer than the actual movie. What could you possibly have to say for 2 hours and 40 minutes?
Yeah.
But if it's actually kind of broken up into sections. It's like he actually goes into particular scenes and he analyzes scenes from previous movies in some real detail to kind of show like the back and forth of it. So it's like he compares and contrasts Black Widow interrogating Loki in the first Avengers movie with a really lackluster scene of her interrogating the villain in Black Widow. And just how like before she would always like use manipulation and maybe her feminine wiles and make people underestimate her, and they would just let things slip out.
Yeah.
Where in her movie, she was fighting an evil version of what's his name? The one who Hollywood used to defend until they suddenly decided not to.
Harvey Weinstein.
Right, yeah, evil Harvey Weinstein, and suddenly it was just all just like brute force interrogation and making him angry and things like that, and just like, okay, so all the subtlety is gone. Great, wonderful,
Yeah.
good job. So basically, Mahler had salient points to make the whole way along. I totally understand anybody who did not want to watch that review because of length, but it's like in each individual piece was mostly on track. The reason I was thinking about it though is that I would say that he isn't the problem. People who like him can be the problem because they don't understand the subtlety of it, where he does care about character motivations, backstories, things like that, and they can get caught up on, well, the logical thing to do in this scene would be X.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like say, Magpie Wizard characters are very often illogical because they're driven by their emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. He can go on for a long time. Especially the Star Wars ones can be kind of hard. They can go on a little too long.
Right, and so it's like it's those things that you enjoy that are hard to recommend.
Mm-hmm.
I know why I like it. I'm often doing activities where I can have his video in the background while I'm on a jog or whatever. But not everybody has long blocks of day where they're doing mindless things too.
Right.
Everyone have something like that in the background.
True. Yeah.
But the other thing is that so I'm going to describe a scenario here, and this is one that struck me when I was first taking out this topic. So let's say that you're in a scenario where a villain has gotten the ultimate power, and you and your friends have managed to keep him away from the MacGuffin that will give him the ultimate power and let him have his way with the universe.
Mhm.
Do you A, continue to help them keep the MacGuffin away from him, or B, when you find out that he hurt or killed somebody that you like, do you stop everything and just start shouting at him? Uh, okay. You may know the scenario I'm talking about here, but
Yeah.
it's like the if you were being Mr. Spock logical, of course, A. I mean,
Well, yeah.
so now now did you know the scenario I'm talking about?
Is it it's not Infinity War, is it?
It is Infinity War.
Okay, it wasn't okay, yeah.
Because you could totally scream at Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, "You idiot!
Yeah.
Why did you stop fighting Thanos to yell at him about Gamora?
Yeah.
That is so illogical." But my thought when I was in the theater watching that, it's like, oh my god, that is so Peter Quill, it hurts.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I could see him doing that. You know, if you watch the first two Guardians movies, I mean, it's not out of character.
Right. He is a stunted Han Solo who is very tied up with his friends and family, and finding out that Gamora had been killed by Thanos to get one of the Infinity Gems is going to make him flip out a little bit.
Yep.
I mean, I think back to Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when his father, who he had been so friendly with, revealed his evil plan, and the second he mentioned, it would hurt me so much to put that cancer in her brain.
Yeah.
Guns blazing without a second thought.
Yep.
It didn't matter that his dad had more power than he could possibly imagine. It didn't matter that maybe the smart thing to do would have been to play along until you had backup. No. That's Peter Quill. That's Mr. Impulse.
Yep. Yeah. People expect complete and total logic out of a character when people in real life are hardly logical most of the time. Exactly. I mean, when you're and speaking, I'm speaking as somebody like for myself who can be very emotional at times. Like, when something is happening and my emotions get really heightened, the logic center in my brain shuts off completely. And it's not out of and there are a lot of people who are like that, and so for people to and that was something that got me about Infinity War, was everybody was so getting on Peter Quill about that, but it's like, how else was Thanos supposed to get away? And also too, how was he supposed to get away and get the other stone and then snap his fingers and
Right. That's actually a reason why a lot of military training is designed, or for that matter, training in general is designed to tamp down your emotional impulses. Like, I was just watching an interesting video where they're talking about, well, why hasn't there been a major airline crash in the United States in more than 20 years? And the answer is because they have, like, every time there is an accident anywhere in the world, there's like this government agency, I forget the name of it, that goes out there and analyzes the cause of the crash within an umpteenth degree. And they figure out, okay, this crash happened because during takeoff, the pilot and co-pilot started talking about the Knicks game.
Yeah.
They forgot this.
Yeah, it's the NTSB.
That's right. Yeah, it was a video from what's his name? Can't believe I'm blanking on this. Bill Whittle that I was watching.
Oh.
And yeah, the NTSB and just talk about like how you have to codify certain things because people can get distracted and complacent and emotional, and how there are just situations where that cannot be allowed. Similar thing where it's like, think about early modern warfare. Is it natural to have a line of people marching in perfect formation as cannonballs and muskets are picking off at people on the line? Is it natural for a person to go, okay, I'm on the front line, I'm probably going to die?
Yeah.
But I am here to keep make sure the person behind me can get into position to shoot their musket.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, that was the gentlemanly form of combat. If you know, yeah, that's how gentlemen conducted war, was just walking up to people in lines and shooting at each other.
Right. And it also was like it was the most efficient way of making use of a smooth bore weapon too, is just to pour so much fire at the guy.
Yeah.
But if you have a task to do, often you have to be trained not to think with your emotions instead of cold hard logic.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of the other thing I noticed is you can kind of tell when somebody is overly annoyed with characters for acting like characters,
Hmm.
especially in analysis stuff. And that's part of why I like Mahler too, is he does take characters and characterization into account.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. And I will say, like, as far as logic and realism goes, like, if you're telling a story that's meant to be grounded in reality, like, like, say, if you are doing like a story in World War II, you know, you have to, like, keep, the realism of World War II. You have to have the how the the aesthetic of it, and how the men acted during World War, during the war, and how they were trained, and all this other stuff, and you
mhm.
know yeah.
You should know which division they're in, which army they're in, and who was the head of that army.
Yes.
Okay. You
Yeah.
should know where where they would be serving, and if the army the battalion I picked was in France when I want them in North Africa, I guess I need to pick one in North Africa to base this on instead.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've got the you know easy company of the 101st Airborne in Japan, nope, they weren't in Japan.
Nope. The only person in World War II to be in both theaters was Cotton from King of the Hill. Only
Yeah.
that meant to be him being senile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cotton, you never served in France. I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, because he got his shins blown off.
By the Japanese, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They're sewing my feet to my knees. What?
But
No.
and that's a good point. Like, I don't want to knock realism because you shouldn't knock realism. There's just a time and a place for it.
Right.
Like, if Sheldon was reading my novel set in 15th century France and he said, "Oh, that type of sword was used in the 13th century," and I'd go, "Darn it! Why'd you have to point that out?" But you're right.
Mhm.
Because I have to find a proper type of sword, or I have to explain why this old sword was passed through the family and still used somehow.
Yes. And if it's a katana, you better know what katana means.
Yep. If it's a katana, it's like, okay, how did this Frenchman get katana?
Yes. What does katana mean? It means Japanese sword.
Right, you better make sure that the type of katana you're basing it on actually would have existed at the time, and you better have a nice chain of possession that got that sword from Japan to 15th century France.
Yeah, because otherwise you're gonna be like, why would somebody in France have a sword from? Yeah.
Good luck making that realistic and believable.
Yeah. Yeah, because God, how long would it take to go from back then? It would have taken months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the 14th century before Columbus found the New World. So the only way for that to have gotten there, you might have, so maybe a sword could have gotten traded to the mainland, but it's like, okay, why would the Chinese or the Koreans want a Japanese sword? Because they are their own perfectly good swords. Then it would have had to go all the way through the Silk Road, through like India and Persia and the Ottoman Empire, and
Yeah.
and ports in Italy, probably to end up in 14th century France.
Yeah. Well, and also keep in mind too, Japan was a very isolated nation back then. They didn't like outsiders.
I read a book about that recently. They go through. There actually were like a few. That there were periods where they were more isolated than others. So there would have been some like time periods in the last like 2,000 years where they would have had a lot more contact with Asia.
Okay.
So I forget the 14th century would be there. I just picked that as a random example.
Oh yeah.
1400s, but still, it's a very tangled web of logic you're getting just to have a katana wielding Frenchman in the Renaissance age.
Yeah.
Probably better off just giving him a rapier.
Yeah. But it's you know when you if you try to, yeah, like I said before, when you try to apply too much logic to a story, then you're losing what you set out to do. Like, so a perfect example would be like in a horror story. So like I'll pick a slasher, like Friday the 13th. Okay, does it make sense that Jason Voorhees keeps coming back to life? No. Does it make sense that he just keeps getting bigger and bigger? No. So
Does it make sense that anybody comes within 20 miles of Crystal Lake?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and so it's like, okay, well, so by that logic, then you should probably consider the fact that you've got teenagers are not going to be acting in a very logical manner when they're being chased and hunted down by a machete wielding, hockey mask wearing killer, undead
Right.
killer. Yeah.
Especially when they were going up there just to have some fun and screw around for the weekend.
Right.
Now, and this could actually be an interesting movie to do if they ever felt like it. Now, if you had like a squad of paranormal hunters who had heard these rumors about the killer of Crystal Lake, and they were loaded to the gills with weapons, and they were military professionals who were ready for weird nonsense to go on, then you would expect some more logic out of them. Yeah. But even they might break if Jason came in the right way, or the wrong way.
Actually, I think one of the movies they actually did something like that. Which one was that?
I haven't seen them all.
I haven't either, but I watched a documentary about all the movies. I want to say it was like the 8th or 9th or the 9th movie where they did that, where like they hunted, like they had the FBI and everybody hunted them down and killed them.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I'll say the scenario you were just describing sounded a lot like Aliens.
Yeah, actually, because Alien was more like a slasher movie in space, where Aliens was more like taking the slasher monster, making more of them, and making it an action flick.
Right. Yeah, going from Ridley Scott to James Cameron.
Not an awful trade-off.
No. Yeah, both great filmmakers.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, it's and again, in that scenario, you had to have the Marines couldn't use their guns, because I don't know if it was like the scene in there where like there was like some like exploding flammable thing and then they couldn't use their guns, so then they're starting to get picked off by all the xenomorphs.
Right, man, it's been forever since I've seen that movie. I need to fix that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when the last time I watched that. It was, God, yeah, it's been a while since I watched it. Maybe 10 years.
Yeah. And also, there are certain types of stories that are just completely driven by emotions, like, say, a romance story. Now, how many times, and I've seen this with like certain movies. It's like, man, why did she leave behind that totally dependable, nice guy to go off with that person with the fling? And it's like, well, this is like a escapist fantasy for lonely housewives and single women. So it's like they want that. It's not logical to leave everything behind for this penniless pool boy or whatever.
Yeah.
But uh, but it's like the heart wants what it wants, and that's like what the story is exploring.
Yeah, and I would say, of course, these days it seems like art is or life is imitating art in that regard. But that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed is that so I just finished reading this comic book called Radiant Black. Do not recommend it. It was supposed to be like, oh, from the guy who made those Power Rangers comics, people's like he's making his own series. It's basically just the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle, but with a main character who I hate so much, and it totally violated a bit of logic and realism because he's a failed author who moved to Los Angeles to pursue his dream of writing novels. Now, is Los Angeles where you go to write novels?
No,
No.
you write screenplays in Los Angeles.
Right. He should have been a screenplay writer who failed.
Yeah.
They said he was trying to write a novel. And the worst thing they did in that book was they had it was supposed to be a short story supposedly, but I guess due to length it was like just this 2-page, more of like an outline or a summary of a vague idea.
Yeah.
And it made you hate him because you go, who the hell optioned this? What publisher looked at this and said, yeah, I'll throw an advance at this guy, go for it. And then he couldn't deliver on it because it was just like you had an outline, not an actual story.
Yeah.
And it's like it just kept breaking my sense of how writing works realism wise, and it's just, dude, you're a writer yourself. Sure, I know it's comic books, but you have to have some concept of like if there's a city to move to be close to the publishing houses, it's called New York.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like you write so badly that I have to wonder if you actually plagiarized the one book that you supposedly had done. But and I said to myself, what would have actually been realistic here is what if he was a screenplay writer who failed in Los Angeles and he said, well, I can't make a movie, but I'm sure I can make a book. And then that bad prose would have made more sense because you'd be used to writing kind of bland descriptions for the set maker and the director to work off of. And that would have actually been like, oh man, I'm not good at this thing. Oh, my dream of writing is dead. Superpowers. Finally, my life has meaning again. But no, we can't have nice things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, if this guy can have a following and keep getting deals with Image and other and the crappy Marvel Ultraman comics, you deserve to make it in comic books.
Yeah. Yeah, it's God, what was I gonna say? But yeah, it and also too, like I would all a genre of fiction that I was pretty involved with for a little while. I stopped doing it, but it was just cop stories,
Mhm.
murder mysteries, and I used to watch a lot of cop shows, and one of the thing in I watched on a documentary on Netflix. There's a documentary series about the Night Stalker. I don't know if you know anything about that.
I can't say I do.
You do?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Oh, he was probably one of the most evil people who have ever walked this earth. This guy was like, I'm not even going to mention his name. He was horrible. Did a lot of really horrible things in L.A. in 1980, summer of 1985. But the documentary focused on the two cops who were trying to stop him, and like one of the detectives is a hard-nosed veteran detective, and then the other one was a young rookie.
Mhm.
Like, how many cop shows and how many cop movies have you seen where that's the dynamic? You got a hard-nosed veteran detective and a young rookie. It's just it was like pretty much it was amazing like how like some cop shows and movies can be realistic in that regard because that there was actually that pairing and that you watch these two guys and they looked like cops from Law and Order. Just
Yeah, I mean, and when you think about it, it is a realistic. If I'm the police chief, I don't want to pair two veterans together because those two veterans both have overlapping experience that makes them kind of redundant with each other, and you want them with the rookie to pass that on.
right.
And that's also, you're talking earlier about the odd couple thing. That's a really satisfying dynamic because you can have like the rookie get kind of jaded and like, oh man, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna protect this city and make everything better. Boy, howdy! I can't wait to go out there with my white cowboy hat and solve problems. Kid, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
Go ahead.
realism is, I would say, like kind of in closing, realism and logic is your friend, but it doesn't have to be like some sort of Mr. Spock logic. It just has to be internally consistent.
Yes.
To go back to the Peter Quill example, if they had not established how emotional Peter Quill was, I could have been just as angry. But again, because they'd spent 3 movies basically telling you this guy is an impulsive hothead who is defined by loss.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, that wasn't the optimal move, but it's the Peter Quill move.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, this is a good one here. So tropes come from real circumstances and experiences, which is why they often get retold a lot and even exaggerated. Like the Kraken was most likely a giant squid, but people didn't know that back then. Yeah, exactly. And or Moby Dick. Just
Right, that was based on real life whaling.
yeah, and big freaking whale. Um, but yeah.
It's like logic, it's your friend, but at a certain point you have to go, okay, in my case, maybe it's a stretch for the magical system, but it's not technically impossible to have a translation thing translating hundreds or thousands of people talking at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
I just have to not go into it in too much detail.
Yes. Yes. Don't ask questions.
Realism, on the other hand, can be a dirty word because, well, what do you mean? Do you mean like literal logic, or do you mean like, well, a person in this situation would realistically, who's writing the character?
Yeah.
I didn't ask what you would do, Mr. Internet armchair person.
Yes.
I want to know what my character would do.
Yes. Yes. Best to avoid armchair logic from people who don't know who you're. Don't know the character. Know the character. Know less about the character than you do. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yep. Yeah. It's like you can have a totally awesome story where the characters are just completely emotional basket cases who very rarely do the optimal thing. You can have an extremely boring story where everybody is optimal at all times.
Yeah, very true.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Armchair logic is for those who don't write.
Exactly. That was really what TV tropes trapped me into, was the realization that, or was what I had to break out of, was the realization that, I'm spending more time thinking about how not to make my stories tropey than actually writing.
Yeah. Since we're at the end of the program, does anyone have any questions for us? Thanks, Marissa. I appreciate it. Oh, we answered all of them.
Darn it, we were too efficient to have a question and answer period.
Dang.
Okay, I have a question for you, Daniel.
Okay.
What is that behind you on this, like on top of that stack of books there?
Right here.
Yep.
We have Cyberfrog,
Oh,
and then let's see, and then this is Salamandroid.
oh man. When did so? I think I got the one of that where I'll get the Cyber Frog with the book when that comes out.
Yeah, I should be getting that too. I think that was a separate tier, and I bought it just because I had no idea that he was gonna put the toys in with the books. But yeah.
At least I think that I think I recall Ethan mentioning or doing an update saying that everybody got one of the Cyber Frog toys.
Yeah, I think it was Cyberfrog.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Which dang, I wish I'd picked up that Salamandroid because that is a handsome toy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But let's see if I have any questions. I don't think I have any questions for you, Bobcat, unfortunately.
Well, I'm not giving you much to go off of with my little Animu avatar here.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this show up.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it.
I guess we'll have to be less optimal next time.
Yes. All right. So we'll see you again next week, everybody. Good night.
Good night.